Welcome to This Week in Local, a Localogy podcast featuring lively conversations about the local digital ecosystem, hosted by Localogy analysts Mike Boland and Charles Laughlin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of This Week in Local. This is Localogy's new podcast featuring what we call lively conversations on the local digital ecosystem. And we're going to try to do it for you every week in 30 minutes or less. As we like to say here, this is a very treadmill-friendly podcast. So what we're really doing on the podcast is talking about articles we're publishing on Localogy Insider, or at least some of them, the ones we're most excited about. And that's Localogy's online publication where we track developments that are defining the local digital ecosystem. So our sole plug of the episode today will be to ask you to subscribe to this podcast, This Week in Local, on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. So I'm joined by my co-host, Mike Boland, my fellow senior analyst at Localogy. Mike, how's it going today?
Hi, Charlie. Good to be here.
Great. Thanks, Mike. So today you're going to riff on something that you wrote this week in Local. We're going to try to say that as often as possible. So, the title just gets burned into people's heads. And you talked about some significant changes that Google's made to its search results experience. And I'm just going to read the lead paragraph that you just wrote because I think it's pretty damn good. I'm not going to do that all the time, but I wanted to do that this time. Okay, so here it goes. They say that the best place to hide a body is on page 2 of Google search results. Now that hiding spot may be going away. Google this week announced that it's launching continuous scrolling on desktop search results, SERPs as they're commonly known, which sidesteps the friction of having to click through pages. Mike, I know I'm lame, but that joke has always made me laugh. How would you rewrite the joke now?
Yeah, well, I guess the Google's cracking down on body hiding and hiding other nefarious and illegal activity on page 2. Because yes, that page 2 is sort of going away. And to be clear, they did this a few years ago on mobile. And the thought in mobile was, less finger taps. Continuous scroll is sort of just a UX standard that's developed on mobile. Now they're sort of extending that to desktop for a lot of reasons. And it's just as it sounds. Instead of, the traditional page format, you can just keep scrolling. It's not infinite scroll technically, which just goes on infinitely. I think they let you have about 6 pages, which is roughly 60 results. And then if you want more, you can just sort of hit more, which essentially loads additional results. And it's actually surprising it took them this long to do that. I think that Google continues to evolve beyond that sort of traditional 10 blue links paradigm. In thinking that, that's not the way the human brain works.
Mm-hmm.
As Yext always says, we want answers, not links. And it continues to sort of, work on its index and work on its knowledge graph in a lot of ways. Some of those changes tend to be algorithmic and some are more sort of UX based. This is one of the UX based enhancements. And if you think about it, one result might be that we'll see those page 2 or what is currently page 2 results more often. Because right now, again, that's where you hide the body. No one goes there. And I think it's a combination of just friction of clicking to go to page 2, but also this sort of mental block we all have, or this thought that if it's not good enough for page 1, it's probably not relevant. So I think one result of this is those, results 20 through 30 and beyond are just going to get more airtime.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to be an interesting development there. Another thing Google launched this week, which was part of the same article, and it was a separate announcement, but I think related in that overall goal of continuing to just make search more intuitive, make it more natural language, make it more answers based, is on mobile. So that first update was on desktop. On mobile, what they've done is they've added these sort of filtration tags to your search. So after you do a search on mobile, the first thing you'll see at the top of the page above the actual results are these sort of, recommended subtopics or drill downs based on your original search. So say I'm looking for dinner ideas. There'll be tags that say things like healthy or fast or gluttonous or maybe different, types of ethnic foods, right? And then if you click on one of them, like say I click on healthy, then it will filter the results, regenerate, and then, you'll see more tags with those subsequent results. And those tags may be things that are drill downs of healthy. So vegetarian or, other types of healthy food. So the point is that search becomes like progressive, several searches, rather than once you do your search, have to go back and do another search if you didn't find what you're looking for, which again is sort of towards that UX goal in mobile of less taps. So all in all, as you can tell, the theme is they just continue to work like the UX angle in Google SERPs to make them more intuitive and to do a lot of things that I think are interesting. And everything we've talked about is more in a sort of user experience bucket, as opposed to, Google monetizing things to get more clicks or higher CPCs. And that's maybe a different story, but I guess I'll pause there because a lot of UX based updates this week from Google, both desktop and mobile.
Okay. So real interesting. So is this simply porting over the mobile experience to the desktop, or is there more to it than that?
I think it's, that's basically it. And I think that, we see this often from Google where they will do things in one or the other. And then if they find that it really sort of resonates well, just based on their preponderance of data, just given Google's scale, that they want to roll it out over other channels. So that second one I mentioned with like the tags and the filtration and the drill down, the logical sort of looking forward outcome of that could be that we may see that eventually end up on desktop.
So that part has not appeared yet on desktop.
Yeah, those sort of taxonomy tags, those filtration things aren't on desktop yet.
Yeah.
That's a mobile only. It's available on mobile web and then Google's app on iOS and Android.
Okay, I search all the time on that app. I don't think I've ever clicked on the healthy tag. Not that I ever would. Yeah.
Maybe that was a bad example.
It's not how I roll. Okay. But that's interesting. Are there any business model implications in your view?
Yeah, I think that, on the surface level, we always look for things like, will this, lead to greater query volume, higher, ad coverage and density, greater click-through rates, because those are all the sort of inputs that, amplify Google's monetization. I think on a surface level, this doesn't necessarily sort of boost any of those sort of KPIs that directly result in monetization. But more generally speaking, Google sort of continues to try to future-proof itself and improve search so that people keep using it. It wants to maintain its massive market share in search.
It's always put the user first, right? I mean, that's a cliche, right? But
yeah, but it's all about query volume. Like, I mentioned those things like click-through rates and cost per click. What comes before all that is query volume. Are people searching? And I think these types of moves keep people on Google because it just better serves them. And that's sort of the long run, the long-term thinking in Google's sort of design and ongoing product evolution. But I think it's still important. So yeah, there is a monetization tie, but I guess it's more indirect.
Okay, fair enough.
So Charlie, let's move on to what you're looking at. So you often write about food tech. And one of the subtopics of that, which I always find fascinating, is this sort of concept of ghost kitchens, which have had sort of their ups and downs, especially in the pandemic. But there's a company called Wonder that you've been looking at for a while, and it had some updates this week. So tell us about that.
Yeah, it's sort of let's just say recently. I can't remember when I actually wrote about this. It's recently. This Week in Local is a catchy title, and we're sticking with it. Recently in Local doesn't quite resonate as strongly, but I recently wrote about Wonder. And so quick background on Wonder. The founder is a gentleman named Mark Lohr. I believe he owns the Minnesota Timberwolves in the NBA. He founded Jet.com. To be honest, I'm not that familiar with it. I believe it was acquired by Walmart. So he's kind of been acquired into He was acquired into Walmart.
Correct.
Did some good work there, apparently. Left to start this thing called Wonder. I can't remember. It's not in front of me when it was founded. It's still over the last year or so. They raised a boatload of money, like 450 million, something in that range. Just a lot of money. And some big VCs were involved in it. It's the sort of thing where a big name in entrepreneurship knocks on a door, the money just falls out. At least that used to be the case, and perhaps until quite recently. And but anyway, so he raised this scary amount of money to do this thing, and the basic idea was, think ghost kitchen on wheels. I mean, I could have that idea, and I'm not going to raise dollar one. Mark Lohr has that idea, and it's $450 million. And he goes on Jim Cramer's show on CNBC and Jim Cramer gives him, the Jim Cramer tongue bath, and, off it goes. And now, so basically the idea was a ghost kitchen on wheels. You drive around with Bobby Flay in the back, grilling steaks. You pull up to somebody's McMansion in New Jersey and you deliver the meal, the hot, name brand food celebrity meal to that door front. And it was suburban New Jersey. So basically I think the idea was, Wall Street exec goes home, dials up Wonder, Bobby Flay, not literally. I don't think Bobby Flay ever set foot in one of these trucks, but there was a number of celebrity names associated with it. His was one. Okay. The food truck pulls up, delivers this, name brand sort of foodie meal to the Wall Street family living in suburban New Jersey. Boom, you've got a business worth raising, for hundreds of millions, getting $1 billion plus valuation, etc. Apparently it didn't go that well. Okay. And the last thing we covered on them was there was a report in The Information, which is, publication that I follow regularly for whatever the free bits I can steal from it. And inside that free window, it reported on Wonder's latest development, which was that it was laying off significant portion of its staff, not all of it, and that it was trying to unload some of the vans that it had acquired. It sounded like the beginning of an unwinding. I'm not sure if it is a complete unwinding. We're still following up on that, but I think it was yet another. I mean, there's a bit of Schadenfreude here because I always thought it was a stupid idea, to be perfectly candid with you. And seeing it not work was like, okay, my impulse that it was a dumb idea, it seems to be right. And not that I think ghost kitchens by and large are a dumb idea. I think they're an interesting idea. Ghost kitchen on wheels seemed like, too clever by half. And there you go. So that's the update on that. We can beat up on it a little more if you like.
It sounds like, ghost kitchens meet food trucks.
That's kind of it. Yeah.
Now, sort of backing up for those unfamiliar with the ghost kitchen concept, and of course it's very interesting in theory. We've been watching it for a few years. In the pandemic, it made a lot of sense. It sort of strips down all of the sort of frills of a restaurant,
right,
and just sort of works towards better unit economics, because you basically just have,
in theory,
a chef making a great dish without the cost structure of a storefront and fancy real estate on a thoroughfare, and it's just about the food. And then that savings can increase margins, but then also be passed on to the customer. And it sort of feeds into the growing on-demand economy, delivery, all that stuff. So in theory, in theory, it all sounds great. So what, walk us through the last few years of ghost kitchens leading up to this Wonder company, in terms of, because it hasn't really panned out to the degree we thought. We were really about this idea a few years ago.
We were.
It looked so good on paper.
Now we're sort of looking side-eyed at ghost kitchens. It's like, whoever thought that was a good idea? Well, I think you and I did, but, anyway, there's a lot of kind of big names in ghost kitchens. Travis Kalanick, tech bro number one, got into it with ghost kitchens. So, or excuse me, cloud kitchens. Sorry,
cloud kitchens.
Yeah. And those two terms are used interchangeably. I think they are essentially interchangeable.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah. So, Travis Kalanick, I think, hid a real estate play behind ghost kitchens, because he ended up buying up a lot of warehouse real estate, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the business was you join and you launch a virtual restaurant through their platform, right? And so there's a distinction to be made between virtual restaurants and ghost kitchens, because a ghost kitchen can be the fulfillment wing for a branded on the street restaurant brand, right? That has a virtual piece with it, and they could outsource that to a ghost kitchen.
Yeah, they can outsource it to scale up to levels of demand that they can't fulfill themselves, which makes it more variable for them. Right.
And some have done that, and with mixed results. And it's not like delivering food to the home is going on. I think this thing just got overbuilt and oversold to a certain degree. But anyway, the idea of a virtual restaurant is interesting, and pretty recently we were writing about this. A lot of people like George Lopez Tacos through a completely virtual I don't know that anyone's bought a virtual George Lopez taco lately. He's got a new sitcom. I don't know if those two things are related. Any rate, so the idea was you want to start a virtual restaurant, go to a ghost kitchen. You can be a food entrepreneur. You don't want to buy the store. You don't want to lease the storefront, on the street thing. So you do the virtual restaurant. You partner with the delivery apps. You fulfill through a ghost kitchen. The problem with that is the brand building is a whole lot harder,
and quality control.
Yeah.
You're outsourcing your core product, so it's not happening under your nose.
Right. Well, the big complaint was you end up spending more on digital marketing than you anticipated to build the brand. And that unanticipatedly high cost, offsets some of the upfront cost savings that you gain from not opening a physical restaurant.
Yeah.
That was one beef. Yeah. And just basically they're not considered a big success. Name a massive success in virtual restaurants. I can't,
Yeah. Well, you basically become more of a marketing and logistics company than having.
That's what it is. It's a marketing. Yeah. You have to get the marketing just right. And what ends up happening for a lot of them is they get lost in the directory of a DoorDash, kind of a thing, and you just become an empty brand that no one knows and no one uses. And if you're not willing to really pour a fire hose digital marketing spend behind it. And even that just ends up running up the cost of operations. But that's the only way anyone has seen a path to success with this thing. So it's kind of been a flop, to be honest.
Yeah. So you could say that we used to be very bullish on this idea, but now we have a major beef with the model.
Yes, you could say that. In fact, I was thinking about what's for dinner today, and now you just answered the question. So
we just need more food puns.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know how much more we're going to have to say about the whole ghost kitchen virtual restaurant space. I think we've kind of laid out our opinion of it, that it's a little played out. Well, we'll see there,
we'll keep watching.
We'll keep watching. If something new happens, we'll write about it. So Mike, I think that's been kind of fun. It's another week in local. And thanks for coming on today, as usual. And I think we'll end it there, unless you have anything you want to add on Google search results or ghost kitchens before we sign off.
I'm good. We'll continue watching both those topics. I'm sure they'll both be developing.
Cool. All right, Mike, thanks for joining today. Thanks to our audience out there for joining. Please subscribe, like, share, complain, whatever you feel about this podcast. Act on it. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Localogy's This Week in Local with Mike Boland and Charles Laughlin. Be sure to subscribe for more.